Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Gretel and Hansel, starring Sophia Lillis and Samuel Leakey, directed by Osgood Perkins. Now, welcome back, Osgood Perkins, because I reviewed, and I should say this now, I have reviewed Longlegs before for Halloween purposes, and I'm going to watch that movie again in spirit because I have reviewed it before. But and before I get into this review, I've never seen this movie, but I can't help but think of the character Owen Wilson played in Zoolander, where where he plays a character named Hansel. I don't know what it is. It makes me laugh, and it I can't help but think about it that way. But I won't say it like that for the rest of the show. I promise you. And this is based on the Hansel and Gretel story. And there's a movie out there called Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters with Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton. Based on my notes, there will be some references in this review. So let's just get into the movie, since I've never seen this movie before. The movie tells the story of a lesson that keeps children safe, as we start with Gretel being born, and we're told nobody wants to listen to her as far as what she sees, and eventually grows up to be played by Sophia Lillis, and has a younger brother named Hansel, played by Samuel Leakey. And the opening narration by one of the witches is something I can't make sense of. I just can't. As we get, Gretel is always followed by Hansel, as they sound like pigs together, and they go to a church to talk with a man who demands Gretel, calling him my lord, and is treated like her character in it. And I don't like this version of Hansel and Gretel, as they don't come off as relatable. That makes this the one with Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton look better than this. But even though I don't remember liking that movie in general, but I'll give the movie this. The cinematography is good, but it's no Oscar winner by any means necessary. And Osgood Perkins, who does a great job at shooting him, and I am leading up to his Stephen King-based novel, The Monkey, that's coming out in a couple of weeks, or a week and a half, something like that. While their mother throws Hansel and Gretel out of the house and travels somewhere, as they won't get harmed by anyone whatsoever. And the acting in this is pretty bad. Hansel and Gretel get chased by a monster man, and who gets Hansel and almost kills him until a hunter helps them out. And this movie isn't scary at all, although it tries to be. The sad thing about this movie is it's a PG-13 rated horror movie that almost had potential, but to be scary as hell. But unfortunately, I was never scared. I was more bored by the movie at this point, as nothing happens for half of it so far. As Hansel and Gretel lead the huntsman, and they encounter poisonous mushrooms, and after they eat them, they get high. Like they're on some kind of drugs, which that won't be explained till later in life, but I'm talking about in this movie situation, which is a painful scene, and they look like the mushrooms from the Super Mario Brothers games, or in the movie for that matter. And I don't think they know they got poisoned by these stupid mushrooms, as it got very painful to watch. While being high, Gretel thinks about her childhood and eventually continue on their adventure, and they arrive at a house that smells like cake and bacon, while there's a slide, as there's no children, and they knock on the door and see food and find a way to get Hansel in, as he's too hungry to death, and Gretel sees something in the house, as Gretel tries to break in a way in until a woman whom I'm believing is a witch, because I've never trusted her from the first frame and of when we first see her, and this scene is too dark. Like, there were times the movie was impossible to see, like, what the hell was going on the screen. And whenever I get movies like this, that I swear I can't help but go back to the worst movie where there's no lighting, and that is Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, as I unfortunately can't help but get buzz from that piece of garbage of a movie, as it's not scaring me. But remember, I'm doing this for director Osgood Perkins' filmography. I've reviewed Long Legs before, and I'm looking forward to The Monkey. And like this, and like that one, and I like that one, and I like the Long Legs movie so much better than this so far. Gretel offers to do some work around the witch's house along with Hansel, and I'm not freaked out by the witch, but more creeped out by her, as she was creepy, and I'll give the movie credit for that. As we move on to nighttime, and Hansel and Gretel play chess as the witch watches, and Gretel knows something is wrong with the witch, as Gretel dreams of daytime, and staying with the witch is like a prison, and the score in this scene got loud to a point it was annoying the crap out of me. And the narration by Sophia Lillis was a bad idea to put in this movie, as at times it was unnecessary. Gretel tells Hansel they have to leave as there's something wrong with this place they're at, and she tries to tell the witch she doesn't let them go, as Hansel cuts a little tree down and hears the screams of children, while Gretel wipes down the table and sees the cloth is all bloodied up, and Gretel and the witch sits at the table and chats about something Gretel never agreed to do in the first place. And if I hadn't seen and got impressed by Longlegs and didn't care to see his new movie, The Monkey adaptation by Stephen King, then I wouldn't have been interested in this movie, nor I would have ever seen it twice for this review, because I had no interest in this movie, and my rating will prove why when I get there. And I'll get there when I'll get there. Gretel goes outside and hears a tree getting cut down, and the score was distracting me from enjoying the movie. Hansel can't have another bite as the witch tells him to eat food, and Gretel points out to Hansel he's being rude, and Hansel wants to go back home. And Gretel makes Hansel leave the witch's house and have other witches capture him. At this point, I don't care whether Hansel lives or dies, because this is not the Hansel and Gretel movie that I wanted in the first place. As Gretel is worried for Hansel, and she wants to desperately look for him, and the witch tells Gretel to be careful looking for Hansel, as she can't help but think about him while he's vomiting, and finds another room in the witch's house, and finds Hansel as nothing is happening to a point. This is a boring film. While in the room, Gretel sees some witches putting out some body parts of little children as they feast on them, and that always was my nightmare about witches Halloween times when I was a very young kid. Gretel goes to the witch, and she has a hat of the witch, and I knew she wasn't meant to be trusted, as I've seen the Jeremy Renner, Gemma Arterton version, where they're witch hunters, so that was predictable. And she had the black hands like she was the witch. And she comes back home while Gretel is there and has some tea, and she knows she's evil as the witch eats with, while Gretel looks at her like, "What have you done?" And she has a string of hair coming out of her mouth, and she knows she did something to Hansel, and Gretel begs her to free Hansel, and she says no because he was poisoned to her. And this dialogue is bland, and this writing is banal, and the directing in this by Osgood Perkins is pretty damn poor. The witch tells Gretel a story about how rotten her daughter was, as she hated her and gets rid of her daughter and ate all of her children. And is this making any sense? Not to me, to be brutally honest, as it answers a questionable theory I had as a kid that was my nightmare come to life, as Gretel continuously asks where Hansel is, and she never gives that up, and she eventually shows Hansel to her as she's under the witch's mind control, and she says she'll get him out of the spell, and the witch sends Hansel to bed, which is in a cage near a pile of fire. And Gretel moves a thing that'll get her choked up and brings it to the witch, burning up in her mind. And Hansel almost gets killed, but Gretel saves him, and he wakes up the next day and sees Gretel is a changed woman and pets a cat. And Gretel sent Hansel away from her by horse, and she has no choice, she has no other choice, and Gretel sends the other children out of the witch's curses, and they're free as she becomes a witch herself. And the climax didn't make me enjoy this movie very much. And how much did I not enjoy the movie? Let's talk about it in the rating. I'll give this movie a 3.4 out of 10. The acting is pretty bad, as I don't like nor relate with this version of Hansel and Gretel, as this makes the one with Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton look better. And that's a very sad thing, as I don't remember liking that movie, and the acting in this is pretty bad. But I'll give the movie a couple of things. One, the cinematography is good, but it's no Oscar winner. by any means necessary. And two, the witch did creep me out, as she's creepy, but mostly nothing happened for half the movie, as I was bored for most of it. The sad thing about this movie is it's a PG-13 rated horror movie that almost had potential to be scary, but unfortunately it never was. It never scared I was never scared, as this felt like a missed opportunity from a first-time director for Osgood Perkins, as I liked his second film Longlegs better than this, which I reviewed a while back, and I was unfortunately getting vibes from Aliens vs. Predator Requiem because of the darkness of the nighttime scenes, as that's never a good thing to be reminded of that piece of garbage of a movie. The movie is not scary whatsoever, but luckily this movie gets done at 80 minutes, as this is an 87-minute movie, and this did annoy the living crap out of me. And this is a non-recommendation to try to tell a horror story of Hansel and Gretel, as it was unnecessary, and it makes choices that are unnecessary, like the narration by Sophia Lillis. And at the end of the day, I didn't like the movie, as there's a reason I wasn't interested in it in the first place when it first came out. And if I didn't review this, and if I didn't think about reviewing the monkey adaptation and only saw Longlegs, wasn't not impressed with that one, which, to be fair, I was, because remember, I had no interest in Longlegs until the reviews came in. But I didn't see that. But if I didn't see that movie and he were directing the monkey, I wouldn't have been interested in doing this movie at all, because I wanted to catch up on Osgood Perkins' resume. I guess I'm glad I saw it, but at the end of the day, I just didn't enjoy this movie too much, because Longlegs is better than this pile of crap. And we'll see how the monkey goes. I'll be back next time with the monkey, and that'll be in a couple weeks. But until then, yeah, it's